All right. Well, welcome back for another recording of Underlore. It's been a hot minute because I was sick for like a week and needed lots of sleep. How have you been doing, Flame Mom?
Good. A lot of work in school. A lot of papers, but
Yeah,
it's all good.
a
And I
lot
hope
of
you're
people
feeling
are
better.
back in school. Yeah, I am feeling better. A lot of people are back in school. But we just recently celebrated Undertale's 7th anniversary, so
Yay!
that's exciting.
Gosh, it's been
Um,
7 years.
yes, it's been
Doesn't
7
feel
years.
like it
And
has.
also, a very big congratulations to Sans for winning the Tumblr Sexy Man contest this year.
That's right. Well, it
Oh
was
my god.
it was him fighting against someone from Mad Psycho
Mob
100 or
Psycho.
something.
I think
Mob
the name is
Psycho.
Reagan or some region or something. I've heard of Mob Psycho, but I didn't know anything about it, and I had never even seen a picture of what this character looked like until this contest. So I am really surprised at how close a draw he came to Sans, and I'd never heard of this character before. So he must have like a really big fandom on Tumblr that I'd never seen.
I guess so. Yeah, I remember. I know the theme songs to the show, and I liked them. I don't really remember watching the show though. But yeah. Well, congrats, Sans. I know you put still a
Congratulations.
ton of work in there, and it paid off.
It was so much work. Anyway, that's not what we were here to talk about, but congratulations anyway, Sans and Toby Fox, for what it's worth. In any case, so can you guess what we're going to talk about today?
I'm gonna assume that we're gonna be learning about more characters from more universes. Words
Well,
are
that's
escaping me today, and I apologize, but
no, you're
multiverse is what it is.
Um, yes, the different AUs. So we were going to talk about Underverse, but I decided that it would probably be better to actually talk about the AUs that show up in Underverse, because if we sit there and try to talk about Underverse's plot itself without going over the various AUs, then anyone who doesn't know what the AUs are going to be very confused. So before we get into that, there is something a little bit different I wanted to cover, and that is just some notes from our Error and Ink episode, because
Yes.
yes, I have found out a little bit more about Error and Ink that I would like to share. In the first episode, I stated that Error tried to destroy Underswap but couldn't due to its popularity. I was incorrect about that. That was more or less a meta headcanon. That was like my own reason. In the actual Ask Error blog, there's a lot more in-depth story reason as to why that I didn't elaborate on as to why he doesn't end up destroying Underswap. And in fact, it might have been destroyed, but it's also the nature of the multiverse that even if you destroy one, there's another one, you know?
Yeah.
But obviously Error has not destroyed Underswap because it still remains a very strong, popular AU. Okay, second point. I couldn't find any information that specifically stated that the Doodle Sphere was in the Anti-Void. Again, this was just a headcanon, that the Doodle Sphere was a sectioned off area of the Anti-Void, similar to the Omega timeline. But this was just one. I was like, logically, this must be mean to this, but I couldn't find any actual canon information that states that. So as to where the Doodle Sphere came from, I don't know.
Big ol' shrug, and that's okay.
Big old shrug. Okay, and then when I stated that there's two origin stories for Error, one that's Error, so there is two origin stories for Error. But as far as like our community is concerned, the original Ask Error blog is the canon that we go by for the Undertale community. Because I've been seeing like lots of like comments and rumors online that like that's invalidated, that Crayon Queen invalidated that. She did not invalidate that. What happened was she created two different origins for him. One where he is Error Sans, which is a version that comes from Geno, and then there's another called Lucidia Error. So what Crayon Queen is, I think she's still working on it, is a comic series called Lucidia, which is supposed to be its totally own separate universe, completely original to her work. That's supposed to be a world full of like skeleton characters. And so Lucidia Error has a different origin because Error, if you look at Error, he can be interpreted far enough removed from Sans to be an original character. So that's what we mean when they say there's two origins. There's regular Error Sans, and then there's Lucidia Error.
Oh, okay.
And so a thing too that you'll see is that so in the very beginning of Underverse, we see Error in his regular original clothes that we see in the Ask Error blog. But later in the show, and Ink even comments on it, we see him in his Lucidia clothing.
Picture that you sent over that he's a lot taller. He's grown.
Yes. Yeah, he's grown.
Our baby boy is growing.
I think the idea is baby boy is growing. Yes, he is. I love that you say it that way because very much Crayon Queen talks about Air like my stupid baby boy.
Yes.
My big dumb baby. I love him.
When he's wearing flip flops, like it's a fact of life.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, like, he appears in Underverse and his Lucidia clothing. As far as I've been able to find, Crayon Queen doesn't mind him appearing in his Lucidia clothing to still represent Error Sans. But it is still just, we just acknowledge that whenever Error will inevitably appear in Lucidia, if he hasn't already, that is not Error Sans. That's just a different Error.
Yes, okay.
But as I mentioned, Fresh, we're going to talk about Fresh a little bit because he does appear in Underverse, but I thought it was more relevant to talk about him now since we re-mentioned Error and Ink.
Gosh, I'm looking at the picture you sent over, Fresh, and everything I've ever been told through 1990s cartoons is what he seems to represent, and I adore it. We've got a fanny pack, we've got the nice sneakers, we got really bright colors. We've got the glasses. I just love it.
Yes, he is. I am slowly appreciating him more, and I don't know what's become of me. So the thing is, like, the artwork that we're seeing now, I'm not sure who the artist is. It looks very close to Crayon Queen's art, but I couldn't confirm it 100%. It is the art being used on, I believe, it is the art that's being used for him on Undertale AU or Undertale AU characters.fandom.com. Unfortunately, I tried looking around in the image itself and I couldn't find any like word, like any like artist tags on it. If anyone knows who the artist is, please let me know so I can credit them properly. But I just went ahead and used this artwork to show you because it is one of the better illustrations. So when it comes to Fresh, as much as I dig, TQ has very little canon material over him. He's supposed to appear in Lucidia as well, and hopefully when he does, we'll learn more about what his deal is, at least as far as Lucidia canon goes. All we really know is that he's a skeleton being possessed by a parasite, that it's a co-beneficial relationship. We're not really sure if the personality being shown is Fresh's or the parasite. I have a theory that it's the parasite, and I'll explain in a minute, but this is, again, that will just be headcanon because we're not sure. We're not even sure Fresh is really a Sans, because even original Fresh Sans is supposed to be taller than everyone else, so it's like,
yeah, I don't know. It does seem to be solely based on just appearances, right?
Yeah, but like, when we see him in Underverse 2, he does always stand above any of the other Sanses that he's standing next to.
True, true.
So because we have very little CQ or Crayon Queen canon, we actually get a lot of the information in the fandom about who Fresh is from a totally different AU. And that AU is called Momma CQ, which is the next image that you see. So Momma CQ is written by a creator called Alana Prana. It was published April 18th, 2016. That's the first time we see it. The basic concept of this AU, which kind of started as kind of a joke on Tumblr, it seemed like Alana Prana was talking to Crayon Queen, and somehow some joke came about that like she was gonna make a comment where Crayon Queen was the literal mother of Gino, Aaron, Fresh, and it became an actual AU.
Huh,
So Crayon
cool.
Queen is literally a character that is the mother of Gino, Aaron, Fresh in this AU. And they're just brothers. Like, it's not even connected to, like, Undertale at all. And Ink and Kamyet are in it, with Kamyet being Ink's mom. um, so Kamyet has, like, her own kind of avatar in it, and I'm not sure if that was something close to something Kamyet actually came up with. I don't know what Kamyet's actual feelings are about the Mama CQ AU, but it's surprisingly a pretty popular AU, and I think it is actually. There were some rumors going around that it was discontinued. It is not discontinued. It is still going on. So like on Alana Piranha's blog on Tumblr, they're still publishing pages for it. You can actually buy physical copies of it because it's one of those AUs that it is most definitely far enough removed from Undertale where I again they're still using characters that don't belong to them, but it is far enough removed that like they could kind of sell physical copies of it.
Oh, very cool.
So this is why I kind of think that Fresh's behavior might kind of come from the parasite, because it's stated early on in the comic that Fresh has like a disability that is preventing him from developing feelings and expressing emotions. I don't know if maybe later in the story they actually talk more about the parasite or clarify this, because I haven't read that deep into Mama CQ. It is a very long story.
So,
Yeah,
is this code thing like, or is this parasite thing like a code, like a error code or whatever? Not related to error, but like purely based on computer logic and whatever. I
I
don't know
have
what you mean
no
by parasite.
idea. I have no idea because, like, I can't find any actual canon of what the parasite looks like. Um, but if you like look up Fresh Sans Parasite, different people have come up with an idea of what the parasite looks like. Okay, so this piece of art is by the Grinning Kitten, which is who does a lot of AU artwork. Um, this is kind of what I normally see what the parasite looks like. It's some kind of purple thing with like four tentacles, an eye that has like that looks like it has like teeth, and that tends to be what is accepted by the community of what it kind of looks like.
Hmm.
But
It's giving me Full Metal Alchemist vibes.
kind of does. And I know it's so weird, but everything states that it's not hurting Fresh, and as far as we know, it's beneficial to him, and like they benefit each other in different ways. It's not really been elaborated on, but whatever it is
So,
the
is this
most.
virus from the 90s? Is that, or is that
I
just
don't.
a
I
like a
don't
style preference?
know. Well, you say a virus, and it's not described as a virus. You were saying if is it like
Or a
an error
parasite,
or is
my
it
bad.
a code? I don't think because if you really think deeply about anything related to Undertale, they're all technically actually in canon, like video game characters. So they're all made out of code to some extent. Um, in
In my
universe,
mind, the way that like all of you were explaining all the pieces to this to this AU, and in my mind, this is I've never read anything more than what you've just told me, so I don't know, and I can safely guarantee that this is most likely not what's actually a thing. But I just imagined like someone opened their computer from 95 or whatever, and a virus from that went and connected to their nowadays computer, and lo and behold, viruses. Avast cannot
Is that
contain.
your headcanon for how we got
That's my
fresh
head
sands?
canon.
Someone loaded an Undertale copy of Undertale into like a Windows 95.
Yeah, that's
How that would
like
be
the
possible, I
really
don't
weird,
know, but yeah.
like the fun desktop and AOL messengers on like another tab, and like the computer can only handle like two
That,
tabs at a
you know what?
time.
That's kind of a clever headcanon, because then that would explain how we get the really super 90s vibe for Fresh.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it would be a Windows 95 computer with an old fucking virus on it. That would be kind of neat. That's kind of a neat headcanon.
Which I can totally see because my dad used to have a computer or like that. And it was gigantic
Yeah, yeah.
and big and plastic white, and it was great.
Well, have you seen those videos where like people boot up like really old computers with old operating systems and they try to put like new programs on it?
I haven't, no.
It is bizarre. Um, there is kind of like this trend of like using like old monitors or old operating systems and like kind of hacking it to where like they'll open like newer programs and just seeing how bizarre the interface changes trying to like, you know, interpret the new program. So yeah, Mama CQ kind of is like I was saying, it's very far removed from Undertale, but it's still a very fun read if you want to go through it. Um, it's also kind of how the idea that we sometimes get in the fandom that Aaron and Fresh are brothers, even though they outside of that canon they aren't brothers. Um, so that's why you can get some people feeling kind of weird, like when we get Error and Fresh ships. Some people can get really weirded out by that. You can't ship that anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm very new to the whole shipping situation when it comes to the many different versions of Sans.
yeah, the ships there's
Interesting.
because just about everyone who has like a major sans that they created, there's very few that like actually ship different characters canonically. Oh, I forgot to mention that Kamyet actually finds the Aaron Ink ship adorable. Again, she's open for people shipping Ink with whoever they desire, but I have found evidence that she actually kind of adores it. From what I've been able to tell, it seems like Crayon Queen was also the first one to coin the anti-void in the Ask Error blog. So, because I wasn't sure who actually came up with the concept of the anti-void, I think that might be our earliest example of someone defining what the anti-void is.
Oh, cool.
So, so then we'll go on to talking about the next major AU that appears in Underverse, and that is Dreamtale.
And that
Uh,
is Dream and Nightmare, correct?
Correct. That is Dream and
All right.
Nightmares AU. So, Dreamtale was created by Joku or Joku Blog. It was first instance of it was published March 5th, 2016. So, Dreamtale takes place in a world that has magic tied to certain trees. The one that we are most concerned about is called the Tree of Feelings, which used to grow golden fruits of positive feelings and dark fruits of negative feelings. The tree itself has a consciousness called Nim, and she created Dream and Nightmare to protect the fruits from those who might misuse them. Essentially, what happens is everyone wants the golden fruits Dream cares for, but no one wants the dark fruits, and people are directly cruel towards Nightmare. One day, people push Nightmare too far. He consumes all the fruits of the tree, save one golden fruit. Dream tries to stop him from killing everyone because he's just going postal. Um, and he consumes the last golden fruit, but it's not enough. Nightmare cuts down the tree of feelings, and I think just buggers off maybe. Because I believe Joku is still working on actually like making the story very clear for everyone, so I'm not 100% sure on that. And also Dream gets turned to stone for 500 years. There's a lot going on.
Oh.
So the thing is too is that Dreamtale is kind of weird because it kind of isn't an Undertale AU. It's more or less its own story, and it just so happened that I think in canon Nim the tree was like, Sans is neat, and created Dream and Nightmare to look like Sans.
It kind of reminds me of when I read the Percy Jackson series, and not to bring in any kind of real world religion or whatever, so I'm going to only base it off of that book series.
Do it.
But there's a tree that makes golden fruit, and it's protected, and it gives me that kind of vibe. Except there was a Titan with that, and I don't think it's in this one. But it's
Yeah,
giving me that vibe of like tree symbolism, fruit symbolism.
there's a goddess in Norse mythology called Adun who grows golden apples. I don't
People
remember
just
what the
really liked
apples
golden
actually.
fruit,
Golden fruit. Everyone likes the golden fruit.
and yet golden
Now,
delicious apples aren't really that popular.
yeah, it is kind of weird how apples always get to be like the fruit, like in any story. Like when we're not really vague, like say like the Garden of Eden or Adun's apples. I don't even know if like in actual Norse mythology they're necessarily apples. Um, I know a lot of times in Greek mythology there was a lot of pomegranates, not so much apples. We get a
Yes.
lot of stuff about pomegranates.
Although there
Same
is
when
golden apples when it comes to, I forget a name off the top of my head, but there was uh, a woman who grew up with like bears, I think, bears or wolves, and then she went on a marathon. She had to win a race, and she kept getting distracted by golden apples that this guy like threw on the ground for her to find.
yeah, it's where like I think it was like there was a whole bunch of suitors coming for her, and they had to beat her in a race, and that's
Yes.
how he did it. Yeah, so he threw apples to distract her. Yeah, I remember that.
Good
Um,
time.
Great times, great times. It's always the fruit that tempts us. Um, so here's the thing too. In Dreamtale canon, the original nightmare is dead. The nightmare we have now is technically a human soul that longs for ultimate power that is possessing Nightmare's body. But this tends to either be not known by the community or straight up just ignored by the community. And it's mainly so we can get that sweet sibling drama. And honestly, I'm all here for the sweet sibling drama. Uh,
Yes, but didn't you say that he was turned to stone? And thus
yes, yeah, so yeah, Dream was turned to
untold
stone,
magic.
and I'm not sure how he gets unturned back from stone because technically everything in anything that happens in the Undertale community, the AU community related to Dream is supposed to be post him coming back from being turned to stone. There's
Gotcha. Maybe it was like a Narnia thing at the very spoilers for anybody who hasn't read the book or watched the movie. But at the end, Aslan's like breathing on all these turned to stone people, and they brings them back to life. Brings them back to life. My bad.
yeah, because I've seen some stuff that says there's just like a time limit where like he was supposed to be turned back. I don't know how he turned to stone in the first place. I'm still confused on that. Um, I've seen some interpretations where like it was like an exact 500-year time limit, and then at the end of the 500 years, he just came back to normal. And I've seen where like I think Joku's version that they're working on now is that there's a different character that knows something or does some kind of magic spell to free him, and I'm not honestly I'm not very sure. Dreamtale canon is kind of all over the place, and I'm not sure. And my dumbass still doesn't know how to navigate Tumblr very well, so I'm not. I was just having the hardest time figuring out why certain things happened and when certain things happen. But for the sake of the Undertale community, all we really kind of need to know is like just the basics because, you know, basically Dream comes back from being turned to stone and is just hunting Nightmare down. How the death of the Tree of Feelings actually affects the multiverse, I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem to affect it all that much as far as I can tell. So, but all we really kind of need to know is that Nightmare feeds on negativity and he wants the multiverse to be in a state of negativity so he can feed and become more powerful. While Dream is kind of the opposite. He wants to stop Nightmare from doing that. Not so much so he can become more powerful by positive feelings, but because causing suffering to others is bad.
Yeah. It is kind of cool to see the whole yin and yang thing going
Mhm.
on.
Right, right. And I think on the one of the fandom sites it states that they are technically conceptual beings where like they exist because of the positive and negative feelings in the multiverse. Like
So
they're
like personifications of like a concept versus actual like born creatures.
yeah, so that's another interpretation that I've seen where like if you completely remove them from Dreamtale, they are just like the embodiments of all the positivity and all the negativity in the multiverse.
Cool.
Because I think even in Underverse, Dream and Nightmare still are referring to each other as brothers. Um, the whole actual Dreamtale story where like Nightmare is technically dead and his body is being possessed by this evil human soul. Yeah, that just for the most part, like I think everyone just ignores that. And in most AUs that I've seen with them, like even like derivative AUs, everyone just makes them still brothers, where the original Nightmare's consciousness is still what's in control. He's just done with everything.
I'm just looking at the picture that you sent over, and they're such little dandy lads. I love them.
Yes, the original art for Dreamtale is very adorable. Um,
They got like papyrus boots, but like different colors, but they have the same like style, I guess, like the Velcro or whatever
yeah,
it is.
that is so funny because I think I remember mentioning at one point I'm like why did we get two Sanses and not a Sans and Papyrus like from actual Undertale. And, I'm not really sure why we didn't get a Sans and Papyrus. That would have been very interesting. But it does kind of get the feeling where it's all like Sans is the popular one, so let's just have two Sanses.
Yeah, and maybe you know what? In the world of multiverses, perhaps there's another very similar Dreamtale-esque world where there are two papyruses, and it's like a left brain, right brain kind of thing, where they're the same person, just different facets.
Yeah, I've seen it is kind of pretty popular on Tumblr to create papyrus versions of Dream and Nightmare. I have seen some excellent Nightmare papyruses that make me have all kinds of feelings. Because I'm a simp for Papyrus, and I don't like Nightmare personally. Like I like him as a character. I like his purpose in the multiverse. Like I wouldn't get rid of him. I just as a person, I'm just like I don't like you. um, but I've seen versions of Nightmare Papyrus, and I'm like I have feelings, and I don't know what to do with this because it's an evil papyrus, like a truly evil papyrus, and I'm like, oh my god, there it is. It's by Hika, Angsty Hika, and they have just an immense amount of amazing AU art. This version of Nightmare Papyrus with like the popped color and everything, and I'm like, oh, I'm having a simp moment. I'm sorry.
We do adore the popped collar.
Popped color, yes. Okay, so back to my notes. Stop simping over Papyrus. Oh, here was an interesting note. Joku originally created Nightmare for a canceled AU called Underflesh. The concept wasn't very popular, but Nightmare was, thus she scrapped the AU and repurposed the character for Dreamtale. Dreamtale is debatably an Undertale AU, given that the only thing it has to do with Undertale is called Dream Sans, and that Dream and Nightmare look like Sans. But for the most part, Dreamtale story has nothing to do with Undertale. The impression I've gotten so far is Joku is alright with people using Dream and Nightmare and their basic story associated with the Tree of Feelings in other works, but everything else to do with Dreamtale and the original characters that they have in Dreamtale, they don't want other people using those in UTAUs. So I haven't found an exact source that states that, unfortunately, but I think I've read like different comments from like the fandom sites and some like smaller notes. That's kind of the impression that I get, is that they don't, any of the original characters that are in Dreamtale, they don't want other people using those.
Well, good to know.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, Nightmare doesn't want to kill people because dead people can't create emotions. He will kill if it will produce a strong negative emotion in others, but he avoids killing when it's unnecessary. And I think that's all the notes I have over Dreamtale. Do we have any questions about Dreamtale, Dream, or Nightmare?
So they got crowns. Does that have, like, are they some sort of royalty connection, or is it just a little art style and they are still more or less more personifications?
You know, that's a very good question. Um, I don't have an answer to that, why they have crowns. Because they're never really stated to be royalty. They think occasionally, like, they might be referred to as princes, but there's no royal family. They don't actually govern anything.
Gotcha.
Like,
You know, I'm all
and
for them just wearing some nice little crowns. Because why
yeah, they're
not?
just
That's
wearing
the that's a
tiaras.
vibe.
And yeah, because in my own AU, and I promise I won't go too much about my own AU because I don't want to do that. But in my own AU, I make it to where, because I'm doing a version of Dreamtale currently called Dreamfall, which I'm trying to tailor it back towards Undertale. And in that, they don't originally start with crowns. They actually start with marks in their head that look like the crescent moon and like the swirl instead. And then
Yeah.
Dream gets a crown later as a result of like a governing body coming up around like the tree because people want to protect it and it becomes political.
Gotcha.
But that's my own AU. That has nothing to do with the original Dreamtale canon or anything like that. It becomes very much like you're the, because in my AU I make I just call it the world tree. I don't call it the tree of feelings. It still functions pretty much as the tree of feelings, but I make it way more important to the multiverse. So it is kind of more like,
Like the Nordic tree of life, the Nordic mythology.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
your, I think it's called, so yeah, I definitely make it more like Yggdrasil, blah, where, because there's another location that's very common that the community has created for Nightmare called Nightmare's Castle. Where the hell Nightmare's Castle is, nobody knows. It just exists. It's just where him and his buddies hang out. Um, but I've made it to where in my AU, Dreamfall is where the top of the tree is. Then the roots spread everywhere through the multiverse, and then bottom of the roots can be found hanging above Nightmare's Castle. So you're definitely getting an as above, so below kind
Ooh.
of, yeah, vibe to that. And I think I've seen something about the idea of making the dream of feelings, seeing that that's a valid interpretation of the dream of feelings being much like Yggdrasil, um, the Norse world tree. Um, but yeah, I don't want to go too much on about my own AU. So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. The next AU we're going to talk about is Core Frisk. Have you ever heard of Core Frisk, and do you know anything about them?
Before we watched the movie video thing, I have not heard of them, no. But they do look adorable. I do appreciate that they look kind of like creatures, the little like stone white creature thingies in Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, the forest spirits.
Yeah, they're so cute, and the wide black eyes just they remind me of like a doll, and it's adorable.
It's funny because it has been shown in Core Frisk canon that the eyes are hollow. How the eyes
Cool.
got hollow, I have no idea. So, Core Frisk was created by Doku Doki. But they have declared that Core Frisk lore is AU community shared, so it's something that everyone has free reign over. It was published November 4th, 2015. So very, let's see, September, October, so about 2 months after the original Undertale. This is directly from Undertale-AU.fandom.com. The AU was one of the first to introduce the term multiverse in the fandom, and one of the first to promote the multiverse theory. The
Hmm.
AU follows its central character Frisk, who, upon falling into the core, has attempted to reset on the brink of being scattered across time and space, which caused them not only to be scattered in their own timeline, but in every timeline. Frisk has gained the ability to be everywhere at once and appear anywhere they want, at the cost of losing their reset powers and humanity. Core Frisk is also a major character in FMS's Brawl Ask Poppy series, and while not made by Doki Doki themselves, it is canon to Core Frisk, as declared by Doku Doki. In the Ask blog, they adopt a girl named Poppy living in the Omega timeline. So that's the character. I know we're only talking about season 1 here, but we did go ahead and watch what was published of season 2, and that's who that character is that we see talking to Frisk, our Core Frisk, and calling them Grandpa. That's
Gotcha.
their adopted granddaughter.
They look so
So
much like a little Peanuts character, and I can't. My heart.
yeah, they're adorable. I also love that the thing with Core Frisk is that there's technically like some backstory to them that was created by Doku Doki that, a lot of people don't tend to like dive into. But there was some backstory they created that they're actually an orphan from Slovakia. They're an orphan from Slovakia, and they managed. So I don't know anything about Slovakian history, but there was a civil war there. I don't know if
Uh,
there
I
was there
only
actually.
I only know of its political historical ties with what I think is now called the Czech Republic. You in the comments are free to tell me otherwise. I have not read up on those two entities in a while, but they were Czechoslovakia at one point, and I'm not sure if that's where the Civil War came from or not, but again, I haven't read up on its history, and I will after this video.
I don't know if this was just like a made up like kind of civil war. Maybe it was just like such a minor conflict that maybe Wikipedia doesn't even bother listing it as like a war.
I do
Maybe,
find no matter what has happened, and which war they are talking about, it is really cool because this is, at least for me, the only AU that is dependent in some way, shape, or form, with no dependent on real world issues, real world
right.
like events and conflicts and whatever. Because I mean, in the original game, I know Toby Fox truly wanted Frisk to be representative of pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
But because of that, a lot of the multiverses seem to only be based on majoritively like video game and computer basics and logic and whatever. They're based on like real world code. Uh,
Mhm.
So that's where like the meta thing comes in, but there's not too much about outside of that video game experience, like the events of the player versus the character. So it's kind of cool to see that we've got some of that going on.
Yeah, like, can't find if, like, Core Frisk story is actually based on anything actually happening or actually did happen in real life. It doesn't seem like it's too far out of the question that something might have happened in recent history that can connect Core Frisk to. If anyone does know of what this Slovakian Civil War is, please let us know in the comments so I can, because I would love to like elaborate on that and see what the original creator was kind of going for. So their parents died in this civil war, and I think what happens is somehow they manage to slip their way to the United Kingdom, and that's where they find Mount Ebot. So in this AU, Mount Ebot is in the UK, and then that's where they fell into the underground.
Oh, cool.
So that's all the notes I have on Core Frisk. Any questions on them?
Just for me to like solidify this, they look the way that they do with the whole like black and white color scheme and the hollow whites because that is what the core Gaster followers look like in the OG Undertale game, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so Core
The
Frisk is
core just
technically,
makes them all look like the Sunday comics
I
before
get the
they introduced
impression
color.
I get the impression that Core Frisk has somehow accidentally become onto a god, but they refuse to abuse the power that they have because they are straight up omnipresent and all knowing.
Hmm.
But for the most part, they just spend their power rescuing like characters from collapsing AUs into the Omega timeline. That's the most part. It seems like that's the extent of the power that they exercise. They could be way more powerful. They could just wreck the multiverse, but they choose not to. And I think that speaks a lot to like the backstory that was created for them because they super hate firearms. Like they don't like anything to do with like firearms. Of course, there's some characters that just straight up have firearms attached to their body, and there has to be some leeway for that. But like Corfus is super against like guns existing in their Omega timeline. They're like, don't bring that here.
Well,
So
cool. So they're following the whole Spider-Man logic, the or not logic, but the advice that Ben gives with great power comes great
comes
responsibility.
great responsibility. Yeah, there's definitely like there's a lot of art of like Corfus just kind of hanging out with OG Gaster because I think they get each other.
Yeah.